Ready to pass the CPA exam faster? Visit cpapass.ai. Today, preconditions, the 3 rules to accept a client audit. On the CPA exam, the examiner loves to test the very first step of an audit, the pre-engagement phase. Under AUC 210, before you can even begin planning an audit or signing an engagement letter, you must establish the preconditions for an audit. Think of these preconditions as professional gatekeepers. They protect both you and the client from major misunderstandings down the road. To easily master this concept for exam day, we use the simple mnemonic FAR, which stands for framework, acknowledgement, and refuse. Let's look at how these 3 rules protect the integrity of the audit. The F in our FAR mnemonic stands for framework. As an auditor, your first rule is to determine whether the financial reporting framework selected by management to prepare the financial statements is acceptable. Common acceptable frameworks include US GAAP and IFRS. If a client uses an unacceptable framework, the financial statements cannot be properly measured, compared, or audited, and without a reliable framework, you have no baseline to evaluate the numbers. Therefore, if the framework is unacceptable, the standards are clear. You cannot accept the engagement. This is a critical pre-engagement decision that must be made before any contract is signed, ensuring the audit starts on solid, recognized accounting ground. Next is the letter A in FAIR, which stands for acknowledgement. You must obtain management's explicit agreement that they understand and accept their foundational responsibilities. First, management is responsible for preparing and fairly presenting the financial statements in accordance with the acceptable framework. Second, management must design, implement, and maintain effective internal controls to prevent material misstatements. Third, management must agree to provide you, the auditor, with unrestricted access to all relevant information, personnel, and written representations. A classic examiner trap is suggesting that the auditor is responsible for preparing the financial statements or internal controls. Remember, management always owns the financial statements and the controls. The auditor's role is strictly to examine them and express an independent opinion. The final letter in our mnemonic is R, which stands for refuse. If the preconditions for an audit are not met, you must decline the engagement. For example, if management refuses to acknowledge its responsibility for internal controls or the financial statements, you cannot proceed. Accepting an audit under these conditions creates a severe scope limitation before the work even begins, exposing your firm to extreme professional and legal risk. The rule under AUC 210 is absolute. If the preconditions are not established, you must refuse to sign the engagement letter. Do not attempt to fix this later during fieldwork. You must walk away from the client immediately. Let's walk through a practice scenario to see how this applies. Sunny's Bakery wants its financial statements audited. However, the owner, Sunny, tells you, just do whatever you think is best, and I don't want to be involved. How should you respond? First, evaluate the preconditions. Does Sunny acknowledge management's responsibilities? No. Sunny is attempting to push all responsibility for preparing the financial statements and maintaining internal controls onto you, the auditor. This is a major red flag. Your next step is to explain the rules of engagement to Sunny. If Sunny still refuses to take ownership of the financial statements, you must decline the engagement. You cannot audit a client who refuses to accept their foundational responsibilities. To wrap up, let's review the critical exam traps to avoid. First, never assume the auditor is responsible for preparing the financial statements. Management always owns them. Second, remember that preconditions must be verified during the pre-engagement phase before the engagement letter is signed, never during planning or fieldwork. To lock in these points, head over to cpapass.ai to practice realistic task-based simulations and multiple choice questions. Keep the FAR mnemonic in mind. Verify the acceptable framework, obtain management's acknowledgement of duties, or refuse the engagement entirely. Master these rules and you will ace this section on exam day.